4.4 graphs of sine and cosine functions. So obviously, if I didn't show you pictures yet, I'm not expecting you to actually graph them, but we're just going to talk about what would be happening if you had to graph them. And then we'll just probably should finish the section today. So after the quiz tomorrow, we may go ahead and graph all 6 trig functions, parent function, and that's all you would be responsible for. But I probably will only put sine and cosine on the quiz that you have on 4.1 to 4.4, because technically 4.5 is the rest of the trig functions graphed. So, okay. So you had some formulas that I'm just going to, we'll just refresh as we need them. So find the amplitude of the function and use the language of transformation to describe how the graph of the function is related to the graph of y is equal to sine of x. So basically just explain how it is being shifted around. So 2, we have y is equal to 2/3 sine of x. So I care about basically right now if it's reflected or not, the amplitude and the frequency. Not frequency, amplitude and period of it. These ones aren't being shifted yet, but when we get to those, we'll also talk about the shifts. So what would the amplitude be for this one? 2/3. And remember, amplitude is always absolute value of, so if it was negative, then we would put that. And then the period, how do we find that?
That is 2 pi over b.
Yeah, 2 pi over the absolute value of b. So what is b in this case? B is a number.
I figured that out. I know.
So b is the number in front of x.
2/3? Wait.
In front of x.
1.
So it would just be 2 pi over 1, which is just 2 pi. But I wanted you to see that it's not just 2 pi every time. So if there was actually a number there, you would obviously have to do that. But you would not have to write this. I'm doing it simply so you see it when we get to the ones that have it. You'll know to put it there. Number 6. Y is equal to negative 2.34 sine of x. So amplitude. 2.34. Period. 2 pi. There's no b value. And is anything else happening to this? It's reflected. The negative sign in front tells us it's reflected. All right, so that was for sine. The next ones are same instructions, except for it says compared to the graph of y equals cosine of x. So y equals the cosine of x over 5. So y'all are smart, so I think that I probably don't need to write this, but just in case. This is the same thing as y is equal to the cosine of 1/5 x. I write that because of the b value. Just because sometimes people get confused. They're like, well, it's x over 5. That's not a b. It's like, well, okay. Goes in front. So what would the amplitude of this one be?
1.
The amplitude is just 1 because there's nothing in front of cosine. And the period, or how do I set it up, I guess is what I should say.
2 pi over 1 over 5. 7.
That's equal to what? If I divide by a fraction, I'm doing what?
10 pi or
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, so we'd multiply by 5, so that would end up being 10 pi.
I wasn't sure if we were like putting the pi into our calculator to get a number.
Oh, no, you just leave it as the pi. Because what you would see when we graph it, and like we only did, I think, the parent functions last year as well, but you count in increments of pies.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know what I mean. Like, obviously there was like pi over 2 or 3 pi over 4, whatever, but that's how it gets counted, so we leave them. Let's see. 12. Y is equal to 1/4 cosine of 2x over 3. So amplitude, 1/4, period, or how do I set it up?
Would it be, let's say, 2 pi over Precalculus?
Yep. Which is going to end up being equal to what?
3 pi.
Yep. Because the 2's are going to cancel top and bottom when I flip it, so it'll just be 3 pi. And just remember, if b was negative, make it the absolute value. So just, there's a couple problems that have that happen at different times. So, all right, the next ones, the instructions are very confusing. They say find the amplitude, period, and frequency of the function. Okay, that part's not hard. And then it says use this information, not your calculator, to sketch a graph of the function in the window -3 pi to 3 pi by -4 to 4. All I want you to do for numbers 13 through 16 is to tell me the amplitude, period, and frequency. Pretty much for any problem in this section, I'm going to tell you to find that stuff and then any shifts or if it's reflected. So that's kind of how it'll be worded. This is one section where I will not word the instructions like the book. But you'll know if it says something about compare the graph, that's what I'm meaning to do. So, all right, so then a couple examples of this. Number 14, y equals 2 cosine of x over 3. So amplitude and period we know how to find. So what is amplitude?
2.
And then period is?
6 pi.
Yeah, so 2 pi over 1/3, which is 6 pi. Now the formula for frequency is the absolute value of b over 2 pi. So in a sense, it's basically flipping what we already had. So frequency is 1/3 over 2 pi, which is the same thing as 1/3 times 1 over 2 pi, or 1 over 6 pi. And I should still comment that if it's reflected, note that. Because some of them might be reflected, so. I think you would probably have done that anyways, but just to throw it out there. So then we have y is equal to -4 sine of 2x over 3. So amplitude would be what?
4.
Amplitude is 4. Period is 2 pi over 2/3, which is what?
Which is 3 pi.
3 pi. Frequency is,
We just do 1 over 3 pi.
yeah, it's going to end up being 1 over 3 pi because it's just literally getting flipped.
And it's reflected.
Yep, it's also reflected. All right, next problem, number 62.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so this is literally because they're asking you to actually graph them, but a lot of them are like graph it on your calculator. Well, fantastic. But like, I trust that you would be able to do that. It's literally just y equals and type it in. Not hard. I'm not going to give you problems out of the entire thing because it's like, it's literally what I would be telling you to do is the same thing over and over again.
Okay.
So if you can do 1 through 16, you ought to be able to do 17 through 60, basically. Not exactly, but the stuff that I care about is in there. So, anyways, 62. So these ones say state the amplitude and period of the sinusoid. Okay, that's just what the type of graph is called. Okay, even the cosine one, it's sine waves. Anyways, fancy name. And it says relative to the basic function, the phase shift and vertical translation. So left, right, up, and down. And still reflected if that occurs. So we have y is equal to negative 3.5 sine of 2x minus pi over 2 minus 1. So amplitude is going to be what? 3.5. Period is going to be what?
Just the pi.
It'll just be pi, so 2 pi over 2, which is obviously just pi. And I'm okay if you go straight to saying that it's just pi or whatever. You don't have to show it every time. I am just, again, for you to have it. All right, so then what else do we know about this graph?
It's reflected.
It's reflected. All right, now just as a refresher, okay, this is the same rules that we had for parabolas, that we have for, well, literally anything.
Yes.
Inside the parentheses goes in which direction?
Opposite of the sign.
Opposite of the sign, and is it going left and right or up and down?
Left or right?
Left and right. So what is happening then with, what is this minus pi over 2 doing?
It's going
Going right.
So we're going right pi over 2. And then outside goes in what direction? Up and down, and
It's the same.
in the same direction as the sign, so this is going down 1. Let's see. And if there's no parentheses, because that sometimes happens, that means up and down. Okay, if it's just like sine of 3x minus 4 pi or something, you treat that as just up and down because it's not in the parentheses. Let's see, 64. Y equals 3, nope, not 3. Yes, 3. I'm looking at the wrong problem. 3 cosine of x plus 3 minus 2. All right, so what do I need to find for this one?
Amplitude.
Which is what?
3.
Okay,
Period. Which is 2 pi.
it's just 2 pi. Okay,
And then it's going left 3.
and down to.
left 3, down 2.
That's helpful.
All right, and we'll do one more. 66. Y equals 4 cosine of 3 pi x minus 2. So what's going on with this one?
Okay, so amplitude is 4.
Okay,
Period would be. Would just be 2/3. Do the pi's cancel out?
yep, so it's 2 pi over 3 pi, which pi's cancel, so it's just 2 over 3. Yep. And then what?
Then right to. Oh no!
Down to
Ugh,
down,
I didn't.
just down to.
Dang it! I automatically put parentheses.
Stupid brain. Growing.
And they could also just put parentheses and not put anything outside of it, which would indicate, like, if they had done it the way that she said she wrote it, like, that would just indicate right or left. There would be nothing up and down. So, any questions about that? Feel okay with it? Okay, cool. All right, so then problems.
Pretty simple, straightforward section.
Yes, I like this section.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad. Okay. 1, 5, 9, 13 and 15. The difference with those two is you're doing frequency on those ones, which we didn't do on any other ones. So I don't care about frequency on any of the other ones. Not gonna do that one. And then 61, 63, and 65.
Oh, I love how it just jumps.
Yeah, I love that section.
It's just like, I don't even know. It's even if we were doing everything, like, it's still so repetitive. Like
Right.
It's just like the same thing.
like when you look at the book, like, you'll understand what I mean. Like, it's, I don't know, it's weird. So we'll do tomorrow after your unit circle quiz, we will do the graphs of all 6 trig functions. The only 2 you'll be responsible for the quiz that is going to be on Tuesday on 4.1 to 4.4 is sine and cosine. 4.5 is where the rest of them will come in, but I'm just going to go ahead and graph them all at once while we're